all is right with the world. Rihanna hosted the halftime show just to make her baby trend and tremble within the womb. Michael Keaton returns to the cowl to return Batman's balls after dual performances from Ladyboys. The Chiefs send the Sheagles packing, despite the latter's assistance from the refs. But fret not, Philly fans can still help themselves to fine dining. And since we're talking about football, what say we keep the subject on Smash Mouth men's sports?
No.
It wasn't right up until release date that I had heard word that M3GAN shared the same director as the horror comedy Housebound. Any other debuting film, that bit of news would have been well received as a promising sign of the new movie's potential. After all, Housebound is funny as hell. This news, however, wasn't enough to save my initial impression of M3GAN because it was DOA as far as I was concerned. After all, it's a Blumhouse film. But as far as those behind the scenes, the director is the least of our worries. One-time savior of the horror genre, producer James Wan has proven he don't know how to funny. Wannabe big-time studio Blumhouse have demonstrated they can't handle sci-fi. Rest assured, the viewership of this 100-minute dosage of Valium did little to change my mind. Don't think of this video so much as a review because much like the price of admission, this flick doesn't deserve it. Instead, the bulk of this episode will tackle my thoughts on this film's public reception with emphasis on its conspicuously contrived publicity alongside moderate peppering of plot details. The story is utterly pedestrian as the following. When presented with the balancing acts of raising her recently orphaned niece and manufacturing a new doll to save her job at the toy factory, a robotics engineer figures, I'll just create artificial intelligence overnight. Playing God to create life usually does the trick. 2 birds, 1 solution. Hence, Girltron is born. So, Geppetto openly defied her boss's orders, exploited her newly adopted daughter as a guinea pig for personal gain, and kept her eye off the ball, leaving the doll to grow clingy before she went killer. As you can tell from that rivetingly innovative plot summary, the film doesn't exactly break its own back to strive for originality, but don't take my word for it. While I'm not saying that every horror film should introduce an obligatory icon or start a franchise, it is a good sign when fans noticeably embrace a character, and even better when said figure can burst the horror bubble, transcend the genre, and naturally reach mainstream appeal. Think Lady Dimitrescu in that god-awful Ori Village game. But folks, I've been around the block enough to recognize an instant hit when I spot one and a force when I see one. The exaggerated press surrounding Skynet's Cabbage Patch Kid is borderline propaganda at this point. Now, on the one hand, you might be saying, people are talking about it, what's the problem? And normally, I wouldn't have one. Enjoy whatever middle-of-the-road entertainment that you will. However, my contention isn't that the people are talking. The compulsion to make M3GAN a thing is pure media hype, and that spells an agenda to push. What better example of this film's pandering than the promotion behind it? From its cringy PG-13 rating to sucker families into theaters, to obnoxious TikTok dances, and the aforementioned football recitals. Those 2 words go together. Yikes. There's marketing, and then there's attention-seeking. Seriously, this movie's PR was reaching Jamie Lee Curtis levels of self-indulgence and grandstanding. Yeah, we get it. The only thing more artificial than the doll's intelligence was this movie's fabricated hype. I'd like to take this time to briefly touch on the characters that the writers put in a Friday lunch break's worth of time to develop. The protagonist has this deadline with career-threatening implications that she absolutely cannot push back on, and yet requests an extension with the excuse that she caught a case of the sniffles. So I guess that job-ending countdown really wasn't that pressing, huh? What does it say about the child niece's acting that a CGI mannequin shows more expression than her? The only way anyone could warm up to a child this emotionally stunted would be if they were programmed to. Some would say the little girl is dealing with trauma. I would say she's a bad actress. They try to make this awkward scene with a therapist noting that the protagonist is an unfit parent incapable of bonding with her niece based solely on her capacity to roll a ball. No, I'm not kidding. This forced drama is so eye-rolling, you just know the writers couldn't be bothered to research caseworkers. As far as Raggedy Ann, she predictably starts off as Chucky, just to advance to Skynet levels of awareness, and proceeds to toxic ex-girlfriend stage?
Megan, turn off.
Well, hold on a second. I thought we were having a conversation.
Jesus Christ, I thought we were friends.
How could you just discard me like some cheap dollar store trinket? You know something, Gemma? You're exhausting.
When you don't have soulless journalists shoving their politics into this movie's message, the movie itself is shoving its own down your throat.
Let go!
You need to learn some manners, Brandon. You know what happens to bad boys that don't mind their manners? They grow up to be bad men.
Subtle. The release of this film was something truly wince-inducing. Variety reports how M3GAN shattered expectations to become the box office it girl. Tell me, does failure to crack 100 million, blockbuster levels of bank, is that what qualifies as a box office it girl?
Bitch please, bitch please, bitch please.
Seems more basic bitch to me. But hey, it's 2023, Jennifer Lawrence is the first Shiro, the Joker can get pregnant, Rihanna joined the dark side, M3GAN is saving theaters. She's not. M3GAN dances into a whopping $30.2 million box office opening. Dude, depending on how films are tracking, studios deliberately underestimate the opening box office so that once the receipts roll in, of course it looks like it overperformed. You intentionally lowered the bar for entry. While we're talking about omissions, it opened in the number 2 spot. I bet the media didn't mention that. It released in the dumping ground month of January. It had no competition other than Avatar, which utterly cleaned up at the box office. I'm surprised the media spin hasn't taken hold within a headline like, M3GAN proves that horror can ride alongside Marvel and the big boys. Despite the obvious fact that all that Blumhouse's B movies ever do is ride the coattails of action films. The second weekend drop was 60%, when the industry standard is 40%. I bet this is the first time you're hearing that. You want to know how unimpressive a $30 million opening weekend is? That stupid Smile movie from 2022 made $107 million domestically off of a $17 million budget because it debuted in the dumping ground month of September, and that movie objectively sucked. Believe me, I know, I did a watch party on it. Can we talk about the script for a beat? Let's go to that Oscar-worthy screenplay. When discussing the excitement around the doll's market appeal, you get lines like, "We're going to kick Hasbro in the dick," and "I think the world just tilted on its axis," that are just painful. And then there was this little gem.
M3GAN, what are you doing?
Couldn't sleep.
Occupational hazard.
Lack of sleep is not an occupational hazard. A chemical gas leak is a work-related liability. Robo-insomnia makes me think you don't know what occupational hazard means. And to that point, it's one thing if the writer's worldview is isolated to Silicon Valley, but the way that they structure scenes and dialogue make me think that they don't really have any real-world experience. Exhibit A. The leading lady spending $100,000 of company money on her own side hustle to create Annabelle 2.0 when you have a project deadline isn't some loose end that a direct line manager would casually brush off. That's embezzlement. This same engineer is told to speak with legal and compliance about a raise. I wasn't aware that department handled pay bumps. Exhibit C. What kind of office printer in the 2020s at a tech company of all places would have a 1990s paper cutter attached? Have these writers never worked a real job before? How stupid is this movie, you ask? Of all the different signs of life that humans have sought from the beginning of time, from aliens to existence beyond the grave, the engineers in this movie essentially crack the code to artificial intelligence, yet the best they can treat Polly Pocket to is plugging the AI into a Tickle Me anime. About as dumb as that stupid Rock'em Sock'em robot of an ending. No, I don't care about putting up a spoiler alert. The biggest gripe I have with the film, apart from its aggressive mediocrity, is how is it that people wax on about how this is some kind of return to campy horror when reviews confirm that the film struggled to balance its horror and comedy. That ain't a boast, it's a botch. Scream 6 doesn't get an exemption for ripping off other scary movies just because it references them. M3GAN doesn't get a pass for cringy dialogue from a campy movie when it struggled with its own humor. Translation: it failed at what it was attempting to do. I think this script had some bugs it needed to work out. The aftermath of the film is a tale to be told of a sign to behold. With a M3GAN sequel reportedly already in development and rated R content rumored for home release, it only makes sense to double dip in more ways than one. I bet they can save on CGI costs by just hiring a woman mostly made of plastic anyway. And why wouldn't Blumhouse be gearing up for another meager payday for a sequel? The studio is a bigger whore than the alleged man who runs it.
It's insane, right?
The late-night spoofs and talk show skits have been as agonizingly unamusing as is to be expected from modern sketch comedy. After all, consider the source of this comedy gold. I'm getting really tired of untalented filmmakers that put such minimal effort into movies and expect credit for it. See the Resident Evil film franchise. I cannot take M3GAN seriously, especially after watching good horror like the recent watch party I did of The Orphan. Please don't say you can't compare the two. Killer Doll, Killer Kid both involve the addition of a new female member to the family gone homicidal. This film is the Jennifer's Body of Killer Dolls, desperate to trend and twice as vapid. Of all the reviews, I think I liked IGN's the most. The AI Chucky remake walked so M3GAN could TikTok dance. That's a mouthful, but I'll do you one better. M3GAN putting the doll in Dollar Tree. I stated in my Scream 5 review that these are the worst types of reviews for me to do because you should want a movie to do good. The problem lies in when you need it to. For this cinematic dead end that is M3GAN, I'll simply say that the worst type of trash is celebrated trash. Once upon a time, there was another PG-13 figurehead that Blumhouse was trying to synthetically prop up like a tent pole. And 4 years later, after Happy Death Day's sequel proved the franchise a fluke, that third film eludes them just like an appetite for a trilogy evades the public. Don't be surprised when reality pulls the plug on this latest get-rich-quick ploy. After all, pipe dreams don't run on battery. I've been Inkarnate reminding you, I ain't just a big deal, I'm the real deal. If you're resigned to your fate, time to subscribe to your fears.
Warn your friends. Warn everyone.